Welcome to Sex, Lies, and Blank Pages with our special guest, Samantha Cole. Welcome.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
It's
We
so
are so
lovely
excited for you to
having
have
you.
you.
Yes,
Thank you for inviting me.
of course. So we know you, but for our audience who might not have heard of you, could you please give us a little intro, tell us about yourself?
Oh, sure. Long time ago, in a far, far, far away in
Land
New
far
York,
away.
I was a paramedic and then I was a police officer. And I got into a car accident while on duty in 2004. Four knee surgeries and one neck surgery later, and 11 years later, I became an author.
Yes. It was when you started, would you say it was an escape for you or what were you
It
thinking?
was out of boredom.
Yeah.
It was completely out of boredom after I think my third knee surgery. I actually started writing my first book in 2011. I wrote two and a half books and I made the mistake of giving them to my family and friends to read, just get their opinion. And while the storylines were good, because I've already re-released two of those, or released two of those after they got major overhauls, um, nobody wanted to tell me that my writing sucked, and it did. I had two people talking in the same paragraph. I had run-on sentences. I had, that was 75 words and information dumps and head hopping and everything that you're not supposed to do in fiction. And, I had dialogue tags coming out my butt, every time somebody said something, there was a dialogue tag because that's what you're taught back in elementary school. And then I gave up after two and a half books. But I had started writing in 2011 because I was recovering from one of my knee surgeries. And I was sitting on the couch and my mom was up helping me. At the time, she was still able to do that. And we don't watch the same things on TV. And she likes The View and The Talk and all those shows. And those are just not me. So I was reading my Kindle. I was playing on my computer and I had started hearing about indie authors. And
Hey.
I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool, and I'm like, wow, I've always had these stories in my head. Maybe I should try writing something. And I started writing. And then I gave up because, like I said, my writing sucked. And then in 2015, I had six Navy SEALs that would not get out of my head. Devin took over for everybody and basically said, here is mine and Kristen's story. And every day that I was going for a walk with the dogs, several times a day, Devin would invade my brain and continue the story. And by the time like 75%, 80% of the story was in my head, he's like, okay, now you're going to go back and write my story. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I can't write to save my life. He's like, well, I'm not getting out of your head until you go write the damn story. So I word vomited 85,000 words in 1 week.
Oh my
Wow.
I
God.
could never do
Wow.
that again.
I love it
It was
so
horrible.
hard.
It was horrible, but it was down. And I said, okay, this has got BDSM in it because by this time I had found Shayla Black, Lexi Blake,
Oh
Nicole
yeah.
Edwards, Avery Gale, Layla Roberts, Kennedy Lane, all these amazing BDSM authors. And I just fell in love with the genre. So I'm like, okay, I can't give my family and friends this. So I went online and I found the Goodreads groups that were saying, I needed beta readers. And I also found a website called World Literary Cafe. And I really wish that website was still around because it was a fountain of information for me back in 2015. And I learned so much just from that one website. So I
It
found,
was difficult back then,
yeah,
wasn't it?
It
To learn.
was.
Like
It
I
was.
started in
absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
was what year
There,
did I start? What year
20,
is
I
it
started.
now?
I
I
know.
started in,
I was 2013, so you were like 2018,
2017 or
right?
2018?
I
17, I
thought you
think
were
you said before.
2016.
Yeah.
I
It
thought
might
I
be
saw one of your,
2016 because
I
it's eight
thought,
years this
yeah, I
year.
thought one of your books was published in 2016.
Yes.
I
I
said,
love your memory. Could you give me your memory, Sam?
Yeah, I know. Like I have no.
no,
Yeah.
well, I was just recently talking to somebody about you and I said, I said it, she started the year after me, so that was 2016.
2016. Perfect. And I love that you're talking about this journey with our audience. We do have a lot of authors and people who are wanting to write but haven't yet, and a lot of readers. So let's definitely give a shout out to Devin's book, which is titled what?
Uh, Devin and Kristen is Leather and Lace.
Leather and Lace. I
Try
love it.
book one.
Yes. So excellent. And that is the book that like he couldn't get out of your head.
Yeah.
I'm
And
like
therefore,
6 Navy SEAls in my head. Yeah, bring it.
I
I'd
know,
live
right?
there forever. Not a problem. I'd be like, and we are going back.
When I started, I am a total pantser since then. But when I started writing it, I knew, like I said, about 80% of the book. So there was very few surprises. And there was one character that came on the scene named T. Carter. He just goes by the first initial and everybody just calls him Carter. And he just came out of nowhere and he became my super spy. And everybody fell in love with him in book one. And I got so many messages. When is Carter getting his book? When is Carter getting his book? When is Carter getting his book? He didn't get it until book 9. And
Wow. That's
it just, I mean, I wanted to get the original 6 out of the way first. And then there was 2 novellas thrown in there. And so, yeah, he didn't get until book 9.
I
And
love how you talk about your characters like they are real people.
they
And
are
I feel
real
the
people.
same way when I'm
I was like,
writing
what? They're
mine.
not?
I know, right?
Yeah.
But not a lot of authors like embrace that, like, oh, he's the one who told me to write that. And he's like, I only did this because, and I think that
Yeah.
that is like that's such a sign of like you'll always write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I cringe when I think of all the stories in my head from when I was a child all the way through when I first started writing in 2011 that will never get written because I've always had characters in my head. I've always had conversations with them in my head, that watching them have conversations with each other, watching scenes play out like it's a movie or a TV show. And I finally explained it to my mother a couple of years ago. I said, I'm not ignoring you or zoning out on you on purpose. It's because all of a sudden I have these characters talking to each other in my head and I don't want to lose the scene because it's like really good for a book. And
So
so then I
true.
posed the question to my mother. I said, you know, before I became an author, I thought this was normal for everybody. And it wasn't until I became an author that I found out that not everybody has all these people in their head. And I said, ask my mother, I said, so what do you think about all day? I said, because this is 90% of my day. And she said, well, now you know why I worry so much because I don't have these people to talk to in my head.
I always found that amazing because I like you, and I just always growing up with story, in my head. And I like to not my brain can't fathom that how you don't, especially when
Exactly.
people say, oh, I've read a book and I don't see anything. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? It's like I write, it's all movie, it's constant. And I'm like, okay, I guess we're up with crazy people. They try to cure these. And if they cure us, we're out of a job. So
Exactly. Exactly.
How many books do you have published now?
I have 39 books published.
I love it.
I have 6 box sets for the Trident Security series and its spin-off series. I combine them into one big box set or a bunch of box sets. And I've been in a couple of anthologies and I have probably 12 tabs, 11 or 12 tabs opened up for stories that I'm working on right now.
I love it. Do you bebop in between them?
Yes.
Oh, I can't do it.
Wow.
It's whoever's talking to me.
If I do that, I used to do that. And I also used to be a pantser. And then I would never actually finish a book. Like I used to write so fast and I'd be able to bang them out if I focused, but I wouldn't. I would bebop around.
Yep.
And then by the time I'm like, okay, well, this one has 5 chapters. This one has 4 chapters. This one's outlined with a prologue and I wrote the ending. And I was like, well, I actually have to publish something. I need to. So I decided I'm not allowed, even though I currently have 6 tabs up, with different books, but two are co-written. One is like an old spinoff that I'm bringing back, and then I have two that I'm also bebopping between the two, but only because one's small, like one is small town, almost done, and then the other one is the dark romance that I'm writing next. So,
Right.
but so I cheat a little bit, but I
Um,
do
I
find
would
it's
love,
difficult.
I can't.
I would love to get back to not bebopping.
Yeah.
But I do have a co-author. Matter of fact, she was offline for a while with medical issues and then work issues and stuff like that. But she sent me a message today. She's like, I'm in the file. She's like, I'm writing. It feels so good. I'm like, oh, thank God. So now I got to go back into there. And I just had a Kickstarter with Shayla Black, Renee Rose,
Love
Golden
her.
Angel, and Sierra Cartwright.
Mhm.
And it was the revenge. Can I say that?
You can say it.
Okay,
You can say
it's the,
whatever.
the Revenge Fuck Anthology.
Yes. They
And
were
Nice.
gorgeous. Did you guys see the
um,
No.
books?
I
Oh,
haven't seen the
I
book.
haven't
beautiful.
gotten my full set yet.
Yeah.
I've just seen my individual book,
Mhm.
but I've seen everything else, in the pictures and the videos and stuff like that. So I can't wait to get my set. But this was so much fun. Everybody wrote a revenge story. And it just was so much fun.
And Shayla ran that, right?
Yes.
Yes. And it's the editions had like gold foiling, and was it a flip? It wasn't a flip, right?
No, no.
Right. Okay. What
But
was, could you just tell us what it was?
we had the hardcover, we had the soft cover, then you got an individual book from each one of us if you wanted. So Leather and Lace got a special cover,
Mhm.
and that was only available through the Kickstarter. Um, and there was so many extras. There was oh, whatchamacallit, for the book, a sleeve
Oh yeah.
had the
So where
rose on.
was that? I'm gonna have to message Shayla to see where she had those printed, because I love that. I love the
I need
do
to see.
too.
detail.
Yeah. I was like,
Yes, it's when you give that extra love and that extra detail, I think that it really shows,
Yeah.
Hmm.
and the readers love it. And it's like very filling of your cup, especially to have like these amazing authors all together with you on this Kickstarter. Like that had to have been fun too.
Oh, it was so much fun, and we were bouncing ideas, and I was kind of stuck. I had an idea for a story, but I wasn't thrilled with it. And I contacted Shayla, and we got on a Zoom, and we were talking, and she told me a real life story about somebody else that she knew, and it wasn't exactly what I wrote, but it clicked enough to get me to write the story that I wrote, which is Sweet Revenge, which is now also available on its own on Amazon and the wide sites, Barnes and Noble, and everything like that. That was my latest release.
I love it.
So
So we
that's
have
just
Leather
November.
and Lace and Sweet Revenge. And is there another book or a different book that you think the readers who are following us now and also liking and subscribing to our page and following Samantha Cole everywhere? But is there a book?
yeah.
I know, just throwing that in. That's my little salt. What book do you want them to read?
I have two books that I want them to read, actually. Uh, I do have my BDSM stuff, but I also have non-BDSM stuff. And Wanna Be in Wyoming is the first book in the Antelope Rock series that I wrote with JB Havens, my co-author, who just got into writing another book that we're writing together. And it's an award winner. We finished up that book in 2001, right before the deadline for the Reader's Favorites Award. And without telling her, I submitted it for contemporary romance because she's still an up and coming author. She writes phenomenally. We finish each other's sentences literally, and but she still works for a living. She's not to the point where she can just be a writer full time. And I knew she would stress if we had if she knew that this book was being submitted, because you don't find out until September 1st.
Mhm.
And so September 1st, I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I checked, and we got a bronze medal in the contemporary romance.
Wow.
So I sent her a message and I said, it's not an emergency, but I need you to call me as soon as possible. I said, because I didn't want her to go online and, see anybody saying that, we got it. And so she calls me up and she's like, what's the matter, Sam? And I had done a lot. I had recovered a lot of her books up to this point. So I said, we have to fix your covers. I said, we got a big problem. I said, we have to fix your covers. And she's like, what are you talking about? Which ones? I said, all of them. And she's like, what are you talking about? I said, well, it kind of doesn't say award-winning author above your name. And she's like, there's this long pause, and what the hell are you talking about?
What did you do?
I kind of submitted Wannabe in Wyoming to the Reader's Favorites Awards, and we took a bronze medal. So you're now an award-winning author. And I mean,
I love
by
that
5 o'clock,
story.
by 5 o'clock, she was still speechless.
Yeah.
So,
Aw,
so
that's
Wannabe
sweet.
it is the first book in the Antelope Rock series. Book 2 is a male-male. Book 3, we're back to male-female. But what I like about Wannabe is first of all, it was her idea. And up until this point, she had written military suspense and zombies. So, and she had only done one other romance book with another author. And she's like, I can't write romance and I can't write sex. She's like, I can write all the other stuff, but I have this really great idea for this book. And it was a girl from Philadelphia, woman, I should say, from Philadelphia, tattoo sleeve, pink hair, a nose stud, nipple rings. She never knew who her father was. And she gets a call one day that she's now divorced. Her mom is gone. Her mom would only say that it wasn't meant to be. She never knew the guy's name, anything like that. And she gets a phone call from a lawyer, and her biological father died and left her his ranch in Antelope Rock, Wyoming.
I love where this is
1,000.
going.
So she
Yeah.
packs up and moves there and doesn't know if she's going to fix the place up to sell it or if she's going to stay there. And as she's coming out of the supermarket one day, there's a flyer that says "Write to any soldier." So she takes it and she writes a letter and basically explains everything that's just happened in the past 2 months, and sends it off. And this guy Nathan gets it, and he had lost his family, his parents and his sister in a car accident. So he's not getting any letters in the military overseas, and he gets her letter, and they start writing back snail mail, and they start to fall in love through their letters. And then they finally meet halfway through the book, up in Wyoming. And while he's there, they discover a box of letters that her father wrote her mother, but never mailed. And it explains why her father was not in her life and what happened way back when. So in the beginning, you have the pen pal letters between Willow and Nathan, and then you have these letters written by her father to her mother that were never mailed.
I
That's the
also
second
love that
book.
her name is Willow.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's like a side note.
I didn't even think
Yeah.
that until you said.
Yeah.
And then book 2 is her in the closet, gay rancher neighbor, who's in his early 40s, and he hooks up with her new foreman on the ranch.
Sexy.
So that is Wannabe in Wyoming, and I just absolutely love the whole concept of this when JB sent it to me, and we didn't even know about the letters that her father wrote until we started writing, and all of a
I
sudden,
love how it always, yeah. They almost surprise you. I love when you're a pantser. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I was curious, your past, especially being, you said you're in police and paramedics, right? Is that what you
Yep.
said at the beginning? How much did that influence your stories or when you were first writing? Like, I feel like that is such a
Yeah.
huge, like, like great thing to have a background in.
I read and write mostly romance suspense. Sometimes I just read suspense, some CIA thrillers or law enforcement thrillers. And I also read contemporary romance. Um, Male Menage, I read that. Can't get into horror at all. But yeah, there are actually stories from my careers that have made it into my books.
Wow.
So
I could see it's got to be like kind of a way to cope through some things too.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Not Negotiable, which is the fourth book in the Trident Security series, is a novella, and Shelby is going through cancer for the second time. And I started writing this at my cousin's end of her journey with cancer after 4 years. And it was my therapy writing the story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and of course, there's a happy ending in my book, and there was not a happy ending for my cousin. Her son was 10 years old when she passed away.
Hugs,
Gosh.
big hugs on that.
Yeah. And ironically, my father went through 5 years of cancer. And on the day we buried him, when we were literally at the cemetery burying him, she gave birth to her son. So my mom and
Wow.
I always had a close relationship with him.
Mm.
So it yeah,
The
but
cycles of
I want to
life,
start
but the
seeing a circle
grieving.
of life.
yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh no.
exactly.
Circle of
Yeah.
life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's in college now. I can't believe that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Wow.
it just it was my therapy writing that.
Mm-hmm.
And it helped me get past losing her, because we were always close. We grew up blocks away from each other. She was 3 years younger than me, but still,
Mm-hmm.
she was in my wedding party way back when I got married and before I got divorced.
Mm-hmm.
And things
And
like that. So
I'm sure for a lot of your readers, they're able to cope through a lot of their losses as well. So you're able to
I
heal them through your work.
Well,
I
books
did
are
not
like
know,
that.
yeah, I did not know the impact that book was going to have on my readers. And all of a sudden, I started getting emails, messages through my website, through social media. Oh my God, I'm a cancer survivor. I'm in a cancer survivor support group. I'm bringing this book and telling everybody that they have to read it. And they were posting in my group and saying, oh my God, everything that I went through, you put down on paper. And I said, well, I went through it twice with my cousin and my dad. So, the loss of hair, the nauseousness, the insecurities, the fate, facing your fate.
Mm-hmm.
And it just blew me away how many people responded to that book and respond, and told me their stories. I was
I
born. Every time I got one of these messages or emails, I was literally bawling.
I bet you were able to write it in a way that is different from other people too, because your previous careers
Yeah.
handled some heavier topics.
Yes.
So yeah.
But I think that's why I hate how everything today is like it needs to be marked and show like I need to know before I go in what this book is about, because many people that might have gone through cancer, like I had my cancer scare too, like might say, "Oh, I don't want to read that. That's too close to home," and then miss out on the healing journey of reading books like that are
Mhm.
actually would help them instead of. But all these things immediately people will see like the trigger warning. Oh, it has cancer, and I don't want to read about it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that might actually be the very thing you need to read.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
I only have one trigger warning on any of my books, and it's a fade to black rape. I
Yeah.
didn't go
Oh,
into
okay.
details of it because the character had become well known among my readers,
Mm-hmm.
and I did not want them to be traumatized by
By it.
hers,
Yeah.
but
I
by
couldn't
I
hers.
understand.
have
Yeah.
for all of
And
my trigger warnings, I list them on my website. So if somebody wants to know, is there a trigger in this? It's the first thing that comes up with SEO. But
Yeah.
apart from putting it there, like I give you the blurb. I have my name is a trigger warning, right? W Winters versus Willow. My cover looks like what the blurb sounds like, what the reviews look like. So I feel like you know what you're getting into.
Right.
But if you are sensitive to certain topics, I think that people search for it. So
Yeah.
I have them available on the website.
That's my only one on there. And matter of fact, the way I did it in the blurb, I said scroll down further if you want to know the trigger warning. And then I put some other stuff in there, and then I put, the trigger warning. I put periods so
Space
Amazon
it.
would space it, and then I put it way down below. Here's the trigger warning. And this way people had a chance to completely avoid it if they wanted to.
Yeah. One thing though, talking about like the trigger warnings, and a lot of people do want to be smacked in the face with it, which at some point, like other people don't want that. But if they're forced to look at it, it might ruin things for them, or it might spoil things. So I think that everybody needs to have their space. But right now, what's going on? I hope this doesn't get me canceled. Right now, what's going on TikTok
Sweetie,
is a trend.
They keep trying.
They do. They keep trying. It's a trend for. I fucking love you. That's they do keep trying. But there's this conversation about books without conflict. They just want the romance books without conflict, and I'm like, that's not.
That's the whole
Like,
They mean without
So
plot?
boring.
yes, I'm like, if you're writing something, there must
Oh my
be, in
God.
order for the words to make sense on the page, there must be in some capacity conflict. But I think that a lot of these readers don't always understand the language they're using either when they're talking about things. And I'm just like, I like, even with the trigger warnings, what they say that they want versus what they present and what they talk about and how they talk about it. I'm like, I don't think that authors should necessarily take advice from TikToks. Like,
I think angst is more of the word that they're looking for than conflict.
potentially for some of these
They
people
don't want
speaking,
angst
it
anymore.
might, for some of them.
I write
mean,
angst.
I'm out. I'm
I
out.
mean,
I
but
love
then,
angst.
but then
That's all
I read for.
they'll read and post the angstiest books that there are, but then they'll say that they don't want it. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, I think. In terms of all of that, I don't even know how we got off on this trap. I was just talking about it the other day. But someone was like, should we, like, what's going on? I'm like, we should not even
No.
participate in this
No.
conversation, is what we should, like, let's just keep doing what we're doing, because I think that we know what we're doing.
I'm so confused by that.
I know,
I
right?
know. I'm like,
Don't look it up. Don't look it up.
no, I'll be just angry because I'm like,
Yeah.
that's the whole point of books. Like,
It
no
is.
matter, it
It's
could
the
be the
whole point.
smallest conflict. Conflict is the only thing that makes a story.
It drives the story forward.
It also
Yeah.
drives character development. Like,
Yes.
I'm sure, like,
Yeah.
Sam, when you're writing these books that have these heavy topics, I'm sure the character development is astounding.
I work hard to develop the story, the characters in the story. And in some ways it comes naturally to me, or at least naturally to my characters, and they tell me what's going on. Book 5 in the Trident series is my first male book, Topping the Alpha.
Love the
And
title.
and my first male book was by Suzanne Brockman back in 2006 or 7, somewhere in there. And I don't know if anybody, if you know the story of how Suzanne Brockman finally got this book published. Her son is gay, and she fought her publisher for years to have a gay character in her books. And it ended up being in the Troubleshooters series. But first she was denied outright. And then they allowed her to mention a gay character as long as they were dead. Like somebody's brother died, and or he was just off screen. He was just a brief mention, and that was it. And then eventually she was allowed to have a gay side character. And Jules was born, and Jules was a FBI agent. And by the time she finally got the okay, like 10 years later, to write a male story, mainstream. The readers were so invested in Jules that they couldn't wait to read his story, and I was one of those people. And I said, okay, I've never read a male story before, but let's go, because I'm dying for Jules to get his happy ending. And it just opened my eyes to a whole new genre. And I'm like, oh my God, there's got to be more books like this out there. And it was so hard to find male books. So when I started writing the Triad Security series, and Jake came along and told me he was gay, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. You know, I've got a bunch of gay friends, you know, male and female, it doesn't matter. And I wrote it in there, and a couple of people in their reviews say he's the token gay friend. And that was never the case. He told me he was gay. My characters tell me who they are and what they've been through and where they're going. So just listen to them.
I mean, we've done a review, you and I, Sam. So I know, like when we read these reviews, sometimes they hurt deep, sometimes they cut, and sometimes you read one and the very next review is the exact opposite. And a lot of times you can't do anything right. So I think like staying true to you is like the best thing you can do.
But meanwhile, it's one of my fan favorite books. They're almost I introduced Jake in book 1 with Devin's story, and I slowly gave him background, or he slowly gave me background to put down on paper. But I introduced him in a way that by the time book 5 came out, everyone was like, okay, I've never read Male before, but I just love Jake. I have to read his story. And they had the same response to Jake as I did to Jules. And they were like, why was I not reading this genre before? And now in 2015, when Jake came, Tapping the Alpha came out, there was a lot more male books out there. And now it's a huge genre. But yeah, developing my characters, I mean, they do a majority of the work, but I love delving into their background and into why they are the way they are. And with Jake, a few people gave reviews, you know, they couldn't get into the book because he was such an asshole in the beginning. And he really wasn't, he knew he was an asshole to Nick, but he had his reasons. He just, relationships were not for him because of his background and what had happened in the past. And you don't find that out until much later in the book. So going back to, you know, the conflict that some people have, well, this was their conflict. And Nick knew that he could get under Jake's skin if he tried hard enough, and he does. And he finds out why it was so hard to do that.
I bet that those readers, when they moved on to the next book in the series, had FOMO, and they went back and they read it anyway.
Yep.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, again, like you said,
I've actually had readers who started with their book, with Nick and Jake's book, and then went back and read the series.
Excellent.
yeah. Again, you're never going to please everybody. Like,
No.
I have people that like,
not.
oh, I didn't like Eli. Oh, I loved Eli. Like, you know, again, or Warwick or whatever. Oh, you're such a jerk. I'm like, then don't read my type of books, because I will always probably take my characters, either they're good and they fuck them up, or they're already fucked up and I try to get them through. You know, it's just like, that's what's fun about writing. And it just, you know, after a while you have to be like, if you like it, great. If you don't, find something else.
Yeah.
If you hear
plenty of them.
If you hear some light whining going on in the background, Milo's just being a little angry.
Oh,
Hello,
pouting.
Yeah.
Mine's pouting back here too.
No worries. I think we might, is there anything else you want to say before we bid farewell? Any like
Just one more thing. I did say there was 2 books that I wished everybody knew about.
yeah.
The other one is The Road to Solace. It's a standalone. It's a contemporary romance. It's also an award winner. And this was one of those books that kind of just wrote itself because I passed by a sign. And I live in Lower New York, and I passed by the Brotherhood Winery, and Brotherhood just got stuck in my head. And by the time I got to my destination an hour away, the book was like 75% written in my head.
Oh, I freaking love that.
I
Like that
love
is a
That's
dream.
awesome.
That is
Yep.
I
And
wish
That's
so
how
many authors
that's how
wish.
Buried. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how Buried Live came to me. I was driving home through the snowy, the overpasses and stuff like that, and I was alone. Like it's like an 8-hour day drive from my parents to here, and I'm like, Buried Alive was just like, all right, just gotta go home and write it now. I'm like, this is when you were like, you want to do the Harry Potter, like, just take it out of my head. It's
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
But I just a warning that when you read the first chapter, it is not a religious book. It's not a religious taboo book. He is a monk, a modern day monk who walks in on another monk molesting a child, and accidentally kills the other man. And instead of letting the child
okay with that.
testify, he pleads guilty to manslaughter and does 5 years in prison. So when he comes out, he's no longer in the Brotherhood, and he's traveling the U.S. trying to find his new purpose. And
Wow.
he comes
Very
across,
interesting.
he ends
Yeah.
up in Oklahoma on a widow's ranch. She has 2 children, and it's her dead husband's family's ranch, and she's trying to hold on to it. And she's been having trouble keeping people working for her. And he comes on the scene, and the local pastor sends him in her direction. And what was really cool about this book was that I had an inexperienced male at the age of 35, I think, around 35, 36. Nope, make that later than that, because he said he hasn't kissed a girl in 20 years, which was the last kiss he had was in college. So he had
Wow.
so he had some experiences in college and high school before he got the calling and ended up becoming a celibate monk. So they end up in a situation where, they're kissing for the first time, and she's like, well, he's definitely holding back, and he's not that sloppy of a kisser, but still, and she's like, I'm not going to break. And he's like, well, I kind of forgot what it was like to kiss a woman. And she jumps up, she says, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you were gay. Oh, no, not gay, not gay. Definitely not gay. And, I just loved writing that scene, because it was just, it was the first time I wrote an inexperienced male with an experienced woman.
Mhm.
So that's the road to solace.
Fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Both sound very good.
Mhm. And where can our followers follow you?
Ooh. Oh my goodness. I have the Sexy Six Packs Sirens Facebook group, which
Say
is
that
very
again.
active. Love being in there. You can also follow me on Facebook, my Facebook page, Instagram. I am going to be working on my TikTok. So I do have some videos coming back up on TikTok. Just not yet. My website is still my old website. It's going through a major overhaul right now. So their old covers are still on there, but my website designers are in the process of updating it. I will have a store available on there soon.
Hey.
Yes. And but if you go over there, you can still sign up for my newsletter if you're over there. So that's
Wonderful.
SamanthaColeAuthor.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you for coming on and chatting
Thanks,
with us.
Sam.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
Yes.
It was.
And I'll
And someday we'll see you in person.
Paris.
Yes. Yeah, Paris. I
Yes.
can't wait to see you in Paris again. Just a couple of weeks away.
Yes. My first
But
time.
not when
my
this
first
airs.
time in
Yeah, not when this
France
airs.
ever. It'll be my
It'll be
first
the
time in
past.
France ever.
Oh,
I've been to
Excellent.
fun.
Italy.
Yeah.
I've
Oh,
been
you'll
to
have fun.
Europe. I've been to Australia. I've been to Canada and the Caribbean and stuff like that. But yeah, overseas, yeah, this will be
Excellent.
my third time in the Europe, UK region.
Yeah. It'll be fun. It's going to be a good one.
Yes. You're on
Well, thank you
you're
again.
way on the opposite side of the room from me.
Yeah. I'll wave.